Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Benjamin, and today we're continuing our series on the history of the United States. We're talking about the election of 1800. Because, oh boy, this was a rough one. If you think 2016 and 2020 were nasty elections, they have nothing on 1800. The only other election that I would think actually comes close to how the only two other elections that come close to as nasty as this one, they're about, actually I'll make that three. 1824, 1828, 1860. And we'll talk about those elections when we get there. But 1800, if you want to see an election get nasty, start with two friends who have become political rivals. Toss in the formation of political parties, as well as the fact that you have newspapers doing most of the legwork for the campaigns, as well as each candidate's surrogates, aka lower governmental officers and prominent figures in American society. And you've got a recipe for a really nasty election, especially when you consider that both of the major candidates were founding fathers. You have Thomas Jefferson and John Adams. Jefferson here is represented in green, Adams in brown. Actually, the Electoral College was closer than the popular vote we have, but most of the states that had a popular vote were were very much in Jefferson's favor. Virginia, North Carolina, Maryland, Rhode Island, Kentucky, and Tennessee all had popular votes. The rest didn't. Rhode Island was a very narrow win for John Adams. If I remember correctly, I think there was like 100, there was less than 200 votes between them. Virginia was a blowout for Jefferson. North Carolina was a comfortable win for Jefferson. So was Maryland. Kentucky and Tennessee, I've yet to find any actual results. But you want to know why this one was so nasty? Well, I'm just going to give you a few descriptions or a few quotes from papers. There was an Adams paper that said that Jefferson was the son of a mulatto father and a half-breed Indian squaw. Yeah, back in 1800, especially for someone from Virginia, that not only was it slander and completely untrue, but that was a major insult. That was basically, yeah. I'm trying to think of something that is reasonably equivalent in the modern era to explain just how bad, like how insulting that would be. I guess that I can't really think of a good one. There was also accusations that the Jefferson and the Republican Party, I know they're listed here as Democratic Republicans, but they're actually, most of the time they refer to themselves as Republicans. the reason we call them Democratic Republicans today is so that we don't confuse them with John Quincy Adams' National Republicans, as well as us not confusing them with the modern Republican Party, right? Anyway, but some Federalists accuse the Republicans of being atheists, Jacobins, or Jacobins, as we would call them here in America. Basically, the radical party that had taken over the French Revolution and instilled the reign of terror under Maximilien Robespierre. So what did the Republicans do in response? Well, and also there was also an erroneous report that Jefferson had died, but now Jefferson, his supporters weren't going to take this lying down. The best quote I've read, and this is perhaps the greatest political insult ever leveled in American history. John Adams has a hermaphroditical quality that lacks the force and firmness of a man, as well as the gentleness and sensibility of a woman. That, ouch, wow. Yeah. Also, on this map, you'll notice that Kentucky is no longer part of Virginia, Tennessee is no longer part of North Carolina, and what is now Mississippi and Alabama are no longer part of Georgia. Tennessee and Kentucky, well, they split off amicably. Kentucky was able to leverage it being on the other side of the Appalachians. Same with Tennessee, for the most part. Alabama and Mississippi, however, oh boy. You want to talk about you want to look at a fun corruption scandal, maybe I'll do a video on this. But the reason Alabama and Mississippi are not part of Georgia anymore, look up the Yazoo land sales. I may even do a video about that, because that is the greatest name for a political scandal ever, is Yazoo. Anyway, back to the election. Yeah, it was nasty. So, anyway, when the electoral vote total is counted, the Republicans find out something pretty horrifying. And there's a few things that are pretty rough in this instance, right? So, the first thing is that, one, back in this era, if you were an elector for the president, you cast two ballots, one for president, one for vice president. Second, whoever got the most votes was president. Whoever got the second most votes was vice president. That's how Thomas Jefferson wound up being vice president under John Adams. So what wound up happening is that the Federalists actually executed their plan. One Federalist voted for John Jay with their second ballot. So Adams had 65. Charles Pinckney had 64, and John Jay had 1. However, the Republicans failed in their effort. One elector was supposed to leave. Was supposed to cast a blank ballot with his second ballot, right? That didn't happen. All 73 Republican electors voted for both Jefferson and his vice president, showed preference, Aaron Burr. And actually, Aaron Burr is very likely the reason that Jefferson won this election, because Aaron Burr had a massive turnout machine for the state legislature vote in New York. And that wound up flipping New York State Legislature, which voted for Jefferson in this case, right? It was a very important moment. And actually, Aaron Burr might not have been so enthusiastic if he wasn't promised the vice presidency. And now he has a chance to become president. So what happened? Well, there were a contingency election was held because both Burr and Jefferson won a majority. It's really weird. Only half the ballots were... Basically, you cast 2 ballots, and the total number of electors is what matters. So if you get over half of the electors, you're elected, period. Problem is, what happens in a tie? Well, in this case, nobody was sure. So, in the contingency election, it was decided that your choice was Jefferson or Burr. A lot of Federalists actually wanted to go for Burr because Jefferson was the antithesis. However, all the Republican delegations voted for Jefferson because Jefferson was clearly the party's choice. The Federalists were like, no, we're not electing Jefferson. Good Lord. He's a radical. To be fair, Jefferson kind of was on the extreme of his own party in a lot of ways. Especially if you look towards the some of the later Republican presidents like Madison and Monroe. When I say later Republican presidents, they're the next 2 presidents. But you get my point. And those are the ones who actually faced any true Federalist opposition. Monroe, it's even slightly questionable, but Monroe was closer to Hamilton than he was to Jefferson. But we'll talk about that later. So, 35 or 36, I forget exactly the number. But you have, 30 some odd ballots with the exact same result that you need to hold you need to revote until somebody is president. Now, there was an inauguration date in, I want to say, mid-March, and the Republicans, their fear was that either the Federalists would engineer a victory for Burr, or that they would just keep making sure that neither Jefferson nor Burr were elected, and the Federalist Secretary of State would become, Secretary of State John Marshall would be elected. And there was also the possibility of the Speaker of the House also taking that role, but eventually Alexander Hamilton, because he hated Burr more than Jefferson, or to put it in short, I would rather have somebody with the wrong principles than somebody devoid of any. Hamilton did not have a very high view on Aaron Burr. And, well, we'll see how that storyline finished up. And I'll talk about one of the many reasons why I hate the Hamilton musical. Besides the fact that it's not all that good. Yeah. But Hamilton eventually convinced Federalist electors, or the Federalist delegations, to support Jefferson and say, listen, we're stuck with one of these two people. Let's choose someone who actually has principles. And so Jefferson became president, Aaron Burr became vice president, and the 12th Amendment eventually was ratified, because both 1796 and 1800, well, nobody wanted to see that again. So pretty quickly, the 12th Amendment is ratified, and that's kind of the end of the amendment process for a while. We're not we're not going to see another amendment for, well, until the end of the war between the states, or the Civil War for those of you who are in class. But yeah, this election was bad. Anyway, I'm going to end it there. A like, a comment, and a subscription is greatly appreciated. And we're nearing 800 subscribers. I'd really like to reach that before next Monday. I'm pretty sure we will. If we reach it today, that'd be pretty awesome. I'd love to see if we could reach 1,000 by the end of the year. Anyway, I'll say it. Have a very nice evening. I'll see y'all next time. Take it easy. Bye-bye.